Hello. Hello, and welcome to the Human Rights Campaign. You are tuned into the right place. I see a few folks here. Hello, Film Sketches. Hello, J1 Sauce. Hello, Paul21GS. I see quite a few folks. Hi, Dr. Nicholas. Why don't you join me on camera? Hello, Benji. Handsome gent. Oh, I think whoever the handsome gent is, you should join us on live too. Hi, Ranger. Hi, Artsy. Hi, T King. Hi, Romeo in a Box. Hi, Vita. Hey.
Hey.
How are you, Doc?
I'm amazing. How are you, Tori?
You are amazing, and so am I. This concealer and this light is doing everything that I needed today. Hi, Florida. Yeah. Once we get Governor DeSatan out of office, we can really make some big changes there. Hi, Palm Beach Dutch. Brian Robb, hello. A random human and all the hearts. Hello again, Artsy. David Giniello, I think that was right. Hi, Miss K. Bella. Good to see you all. It's all so serene. Oh my goodness, I love that. DeKalb, Illinois, Governor DeSatan. You like that, Pebble? The mindful reader, bring on concealer and the lights. Let me tell you, concealer and lights and good lighting and good concealer, they go a long way. They're incredibly underrated. Beach fun. I see Saint Effin, or I'm assuming that's Stefan. Is that my friend JMP? Did you see the L? I couldn't even see that comment. It went by so fast. But please come on, join. Welcome, 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 welcome. Dr. Elijah, we're going to get to it very, very shortly. We're going to take one or two more guests, and then we're going to get right into the question. I want to welcome you all to the Human Rights Campaign's feed tonight. We are doing a bit of a takeover. My name is Tori Cooper. I'm going to introduce myself again. This is one of our guests tonight, Dr. Elijah Nicholas, and we're going to talk about trans men and trans men's leadership and all kinds of things, and a wonderful program that we created this year called Motivate, which is all about developing transmasculine leadership. So excited to have you all. Hi, Romeo, again in a box. I just created another name for you. Let's see, who else? I think I see another request. Oh, the handsome gent. I have to invite the handsome gent to join us. I could not let that one go. So if you put handsome gent in your Instagram title, you're going to get chosen every single time. Handsome gent, are you there? Is that working? Accept. Oh, the third time was the charm. You're right, it is a handsome gent.
Thank you, Tori.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you? Hey, Doc, how are you?
I'm amazing. How you doing, handsome gent?
Doing well.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get started since we have the two of you, and I think, well, not I think, but we have another guest who's going to join us shortly. And so I'll tell you who I am, and then we'll allow each of you to introduce yourselves. My name is Tori Cooper. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement at the Human Rights Campaign for the Transgender Justice Initiative. That is a very, very long title, and no, it does not fit on a business card. I am really, really excited to have each and every one of you, to see all of you viewers tonight, folks who are viewing us live, folks who are going to view us on Instagram later, folks who are going to view us on Facebook, folks who support the Human Rights Campaign. We did a little bit of a takeover today because we thought it was important that we talk to, with, and about trans men and how important it is to develop transmasculine leaderships. So gentlemen, if you would please introduce yourselves to the folks. We're going to do a little Q&A, and then we're going to get right to it. All right?
Sounds good. I'll jump out there. So I am Sebastian Smith, or Cy for short. If you hear Cy in the community, 9 times out of 10, it's me. Pronouns are he and him. I am the organizing director at the National Center for Trans Equality, as well as the executive director for the I Am Human campaign. And it does not all fit on a business card. As Tori says, all the work that we do does not fit on one business card. So I'm a part of a bunch of communities doing a lot of policy advocacy work, healthcare advocacy work, all of the things, and just happy to be here tonight with these amazing folks. And I'll pass it over to Doc.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I'm Dr. Elijah Nicholas. I'm happy to be here tonight. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm an author, an actor, and a trans advocate, and I'm the founder of 100 Black Trans Men Incorporated. And I'm just excited to be here and talk about all things transmasculine.
Awesome. We love it, and we thank you both for being here. So before we get into the meaty questions, can you both tell us a little bit about the organizations that you just mentioned?
Sure, absolutely. I'll go again. So the National Center for Trans Equality is a policy-oriented organization. We do a lot of policy advocacy work. So that's all of the bills that we're seeing right now. We make sure folks have an avenue to take an action. So that's to call your legislators, to contact your lawmakers and tell them how unjust these laws are. And that's one of the number one ways that we can fight back against these laws is use our voices. So that's what NCTE does. There's a lot of that work, and we also do a lot of policy advocacy. So you may see our names around in those realms as well as bill tracking and things of that nature. As it relates to I Am Human, I do a lot of linkage to care and healthcare advocacy in that realm, especially as it relates to transmasculine folks and trans men with HIV and AIDS healthcare. So just a little snippet about a lot of a broad scope of work that I do with both of those organizations.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Nicholas?
Yes, so 100 Black Trans Men, I'm the founder of 100 Black Trans Men Incorporated, and our mission is to equip, empower, and elevate the voices of Black transgender men specifically. And one of the ways we do that is through our mentoring program that we just started a couple of weeks ago, and we had an amazing guest speaker last night. And our goal is just to simply elevate the voices of Black transgender men and increase the visibility around not just the United States, but around the world. And I personally do my advocacy work as a speaker. I help elevate trans awareness in corporations around the world, really. And I've dedicated my life, really, to this mission.
And we appreciate you both. I know you both are super busy, but thank you for taking a little time with the Human Rights Campaign today. So let's get into it. Let's hit some of the stronger issues first, all right? One of the things I heard you say, Sai, was that you help to link people to care. You help to link men and trans men and transmasculine individuals into care. And one of your community partners is AHF, the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit about what HIV prevention, what perhaps PrEP services, or what HIV care looks like for transmasculine folks and how that could be different?
Absolutely, Tori. And I think that's what we're here to talk about as well, like the absence there, the lack of there, the barriers there that trans men face when they're trying to resource or trying to access HIV care. And that's the work that I do, right, is try to open those doors and create safe spaces and affirming spaces for folks who look like me, right? There is a misconception about our sexual orientation versus our gender identity, how we live in the world, who we love and how we love them. There's so many misconceptions around those things that it's so important that we keep our voices and our experiences in the topics of the conversations, right? That we're not left behind when we're talking about ending the epidemic of HIV and AIDS, because we cannot do it without all of us, right? So we have to talk about some of those overlapping lived experiences, overlapping issues, overlapping healthcare, and all of those things, and make sure that it is affirmative for all of us, including trans men. And these are the conversations that we often don't have. So I am always happy when there are more platforms to open up for us to have these types of conversations and topics, so people can see that we're, number one, we are diverse and we're not a monolith. We say that all the time, right? But what does that mean? To me, that means that my health care may look vastly different from what Dr. Elijah needs, right? It may look vastly different from what another transmasculine person or trans man may need, but all of it is valid. So we want to make sure, again, that transmasculine and trans men's voices are a part of the healthcare conversation, specifically as it relates to HIV and AIDS, because we see many, you know, especially like the PrEP commercials. We see, and one of the main things they say is what? This research or this drug is not approved for folks who are assigned female at birth. So what can we do to change that? What can we do to insert ourselves into these research projects to make sure there's medication available for us for prevention and for treatment as well? You know, so I think this is the opening of a broader conversation that we need to continue to have.
I love everything that you just said, and I wholeheartedly agree. Because as a trans woman, I know that my care and prevention strategies could be very similar with a cis woman, but also could be very, very different. I'm a woman of a certain age, and I'm still celebrating my birthday. In case you all didn't know, it was what 18 hours ago. It officially ended, but I'm still partying. Hence the concealer, because I couldn't make it otherwise. But so I have a lot of things in common with cisgender women who are my age, but also it's important for folks like me to get gynecological care as part of a complete gynecological care as part of a healthcare plan. But then that also means that I am a person, because I was assigned male at birth, I also need prostate care as well, because I'm a woman of a, thank you, Princess Slayer, because I'm a woman over a certain age. That's also very, very important. So can we call you Elijah?
Absolutely, please call me.
All right, so Elijah, can you tell us a little bit what reproductive health, how it could be different, and what folks might not understand or might not be aware of for transmasculine individuals?
Absolutely. Thank you. That's an amazing question, Tori. You know, one of the biggest things is going to the doctor, going to the OBGYN. You know, for me, being assigned to female sex at birth, even well before I transitioned, that was one of my worst places to go, if you will. And so when we think about reproductive care, we have to think about the fact that there may be trans men, for example, something as simple in the waiting room. And what are your policies around making sure that everybody feels comfortable, everybody feels safe in the waiting room? And when we fast forward, talk about reproductive and talk about having babies, are there policies and procedures in place so that everybody from the administrative staff up to the birthing doctor is familiar, okay, and aware of a trans man being on the table getting ready to birth a baby, and the proper questions that need to be asked prior to even getting to that point? So it goes back, or it gets back to something that Sai said as far as representation and making sure that we have transmasculine presence in these places that are contributing to the legislation and the decisions and policies that are being made, Tori.
Thank you, thank you. And where do both of you live?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Awesome. So I saw it. I happened to see a question if both of you, if you all live in Florida, if folks want to know. But I think it's important. We live in southern states.
Yes.
And because we're in southern states, we know that there are folks all across the South in particular who really, including Georgia, including especially Florida, especially Texas, where folks are really, really attempting to eat away and chip away at the rights that all folks have, but particularly for trans folks and Black folks and all kinds of folks who society deems as marginalized. Mm-hmm. All right. Hi, Andrea. Glad to see you, darling. So with that being said, let's go into another question that we have for both of you. So since we've already talked about reproductive health a little, we've also mentioned the fact that trans people can have children. As trans people who are adults, we also were kids at one time. Mm-hmm. All right? So I would like to hear from both of you a little bit what you think we can do to combat these absolutely ridiculous, hateful pieces of legislature that are being passed by folks like Governor DeSatan and I could mention other folks, but he's the only one that's announcing he's running for president. So I wanted to make sure that I brought him into the conversation tonight. But making sure that trans kids have access to gender-affirming health care. What can folks who are watching, what do they need to know, and what can they say to parents? What can they say to children? What can they say to legislators?
Well, you want me to? Sure, absolutely. So there's a lot to unpack there, right? Because there's so much that's happening, the climate that's happening around us right now. So what I always tell people is remember our values, right? Remember the foundation of who we are, and that ultimately this country should be built off love, right? So the way we navigate with each other should be founded, right, in love. So when you think about that, think about your values, think about the people in your family, think about the folks that you care about, think about your own access to everything you need in life, right? You want that to be equal and equitable. That's no different from what trans people want and what trans people deserve as human beings. So kind of what I'm speaking to is you have to think about the humanistic quality to this and the humanistic aspect to this. Trans people are human beings. Trans people are human beings. And there is no more normal in 2023. There is no more normal, right? And we are absolutely not going anywhere. And we have absolutely been here for many years and will be here for many years to come. So I think what folks need to realize is that half of this is not a problem. It's being made to be a problem to take our attention away from things that are a problem. We should be talking about gun control, right? We should be talking about access to many other things that marginalized people in this world don't have access to. But yet and still, there's a target on a community that's not hurting anyone. It's not hurting anyone. Our families support us. My family, most of our families support us. Our trans youth are getting the support that they need from their families. So why is there interruption from politicians? Why is politics even playing a part of decisions that should be made between a doctor and a family and the trans person? Like, it makes absolutely no sense to me, other than it's a distraction. It's to create fear of something that does not exist. It just not exist. There's nothing to be fearful of. Trans people's care is, of course, nuanced and specific to each of us, but it's no different than any other person. So let's clarify that. You know, I know a lot of us hear a lot of things with politics, but our healthcare is no different than what anybody else receives. And if I get what I need for healthcare, my access, it doesn't take it away from anyone else. It does not take it away from y'all. You know, when women got the right to vote, it didn't take it away from men. So,
but the irony is there were some of the descendants of some of the folks who were against women getting the right to vote, and against Black folks getting the right to vote, and against indigenous people and Asian Americans, because we seem to forget that there was a time that only white cisgender men who were married and owned land could vote in this country. The descendants of some of those same folks are the ones that are creating these laws, and they don't have kids that are trans. They're not the parents of trans kids yet. They're creating policies out of a need to control every aspect of all of our lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For folks that they admittedly have no contact with and have no knowledge of.
And not even looking out to come and talk to those kids. Talk to the babies. Talk to the people that you are threatening to take the care away from, so you can see what their experiences are. You know, go down and we call it boots to the ground. Put your boots on the ground. And
they don't want to do that, because then it acknowledges that we're real.
Then it acknowledges that we're real.
It acknowledges that we're real. Yes. So, Dr. Elijah, I said I was just going to call you Elijah. All right. But when I get my doctorate, it's Dr. Dr. Lady, Dr. Tori, Dr. Cooper, Dr. Everything, at least for the first 17 years. Okay.
I already think of you as Dr.
So, Elijah, tell us, you are a veteran, aren't you?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, that's actually part of the question. So you're a veteran, and these same folks were saying just a few years ago, oh, we can't let trans people serve in the military, it's going to create chaos. And now and it didn't.
Right.
It didn't. And these same folks are now saying that we can't afford to have trans people get medical care. Trans veterans get medical care. Folks who serve this country shouldn't have the medical care that they need.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, thank you, Tori, for that question. First of all, I echo everything that Sebastian said. You know, as a veteran who served my country for 24 years 10 months and 24 years, 10 months and 8 days. I joined when I was 17 years old. I get my medical care specifically from the VA for the service that I gave to my country, right? And I don't feel that anybody has a right to take that away, number one. Number two, as a veteran, I served for the needs and the rights and the freedom of every single American, not just certain American, not just certain Americans, but every American, right? And so I bring that up to say that oftentimes I think we move away from the separation of church and state. That whole concept. Why is it even a problem that people like DeSantis would want to take these trans rights away? What is that rooted in other than hate? What is it rooted in? I would guess that it's probably rooted in religion. And if we take away, the human aspect of it, even religion should have no place. I'm speaking as a former pastor. Religion should have no place in our legislation, in our policy, period. Dot. So as a veteran, it's hard for me to hear that when I hear that these legislators, these politicians make these decisions that are against children having gender affirming care. People ask me oftentimes about what I feel about children having a gender affirming care. And my first opinion is I don't have the right to tell a parent what they should do with their child's body. If I can, as a parent, if I can send my child to a private school, if I can send my child to a public school, if I can take my child to church every Sunday, I have the right to make the decision. Like before I even get to what the medical care providers have already proven in the research, it is my right as a parent to say this is my child and this is how I want to treat my child's body. The government, and I'm speaking as a veteran, has no place in that decision making. And oh, by the way, the doctors already say that gender affirming care is what a trans and non-binary individual needs to live a happier life. Cornell University Research 2018. Look it up. The research is there. So we have nothing other than religion and hate. We have nothing that should be in these politics when we're making the decisions.
So right. In every single periodical, every major and reputable, because you can be major and not be reputable. Every major and reputable health institution says the same thing, that when we allow trans kids to have the care that they need, that they become healthier, happy, and whole.
Yes. Yes.
That's for any child. If I had a child and my child needed glasses because they couldn't see very well, then I would do everything that I could to make sure that child got what they needed, right, the type of care that they need. Same thing if it had to do with hearing, it had to do with anything concerning a child. And I also like to stress one of the things that you both have hinted on, and you said specifically, Elijah, these are conversations and decisions that should be made between a child, their parents, and their providers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Politicians
Absolutely.
who do not have trans children and who don't even respect our lives should have no place making decisions for us.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. This is already getting good. And man, we're almost halfway through already. Okay, so quick question for you all. So, Sebastian Trade, all right? So can you tell us a little bit? So we know that Vaccine Awareness Day is coming up. And for some people, for some reason, a COVID vaccine seems to be a controversial thing because, there's some folks, the same folks who are against trans care, the same folks who are against lowering the price of insulin, the same folks who actually want to, we could go on and on. But can you tell us a little bit about why it's important for all individuals, but specifically since we're talking about trans men and trans folks and the larger, the T that's in the LGBTQ plus today. Can you tell us why it's so important for folks to be vaccinated?
So I think part of it, first off, is the education piece, right? To educate ourselves on healthcare. educate ourselves on vaccines and the history of vaccines and why vaccination is so important. And then also to look at how disproportionately affected our community is by so many other health, health things, right? So there is a vast majority of our community who are also amazingly beautiful folks who happen to be living with HIV. So that puts us at a higher risk for co-infection. Should we get COVID? Should we get, these other things? Our immune systems are low, all of these things, right? So it's so important to our total health, our overall health, that we educate ourselves, and then we also go out and protect ourselves just for the longevity of our lives, because we deserve to be here just like anybody else. We deserve access to just like anyone else. And I think it's really important that we all go out and get the health care that we need, and that we all are educated, because it's one thing to say, hey, go take a vaccine, or hey, go do this thing, but can we also educate the person why it's so important? And again, I know this is me, because I'm such a loving person. I just love my community a lot, right? I love us, and I want us to live happy, whole, thriving lives, and that's a part of it too. And also to feel like we have access to everything that anyone else has access to, to any other health care that everyone has access to. So again, it's about living holistically, right? Taking care of ourselves holistically, and realizing that some of our community is disproportionately affected by certain, especially HIV, right? We see it in our community, and it puts us at a greater risk for other things. So it's just about living healthy and happy, and we all deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
We all do. And you brought into the conversation now more than once. So there are folks who aren't aware that transmasculine individuals can get HIV.
They aren't. You're absolutely right. And I think it's it's a preconceived notion that we're all binary, that all of us identify as heterosexual trans men, and we're dating cis women, and that could be so further from the truth. Our sexual identities, who we love and who we date, is just as diverse as anyone else. Folks would go on to argue and say that trans should not be in LGBTQ acronym, because trans or transgender is an identity. It's my gender identity. It is not my sexual orientation. While the other acronyms, the other letters, lend themselves to a sexual orientation. So it's kind of, about breaking out of what we are. We're so used to. We're so used to being coupled and grouped together, which I love my queerness. Folks, and this is me being transparent here, I identify in most spaces as a queer man. Now, we can talk about, and everybody, most of the folks who know me knows that I have a cisgender wife. Now, if I feel safe enough to talk about what queerness means to me and why I identify so closely with queerness, we can have those conversations. But to me, it shows the diversity of our community. It shows that trans men are not binary. It shows that trans men are loving all people. And that means that we should be safe and healthy in all of the ways to love all of the people that we want to love. If I could be just a little bit more transparent, we want people to have happy, wholesome, if there's a word, happy relations and sex, but we want them to do it safely, right? We're not preaching abstinence. We're not preaching don't do it, don't do this. We just want you to be safe, and we want folks to be informed, and we want people to know, especially about trans men, or even in our sexualities, we are not a monolith at all.
Thank you. And I will respectfully disagree. I want folks to have happy, healthy, and whole relationships, and have disgusting, nasty, fulfilled sex lives.
I knew you were going to go there. I knew it. That's why I was questioning the wholesome word, because that's objective, objective, right? What is wholesome sex? And if that's what you want, and that's what you call yourself, by all means, be safe and happy and healthy. But if you want some nasty sex, we want to make sure you have access to that, and that you have the resources you need to keep yourself.
The bottom line is, we want people to be fulfilled. We want them to be healthy, and we want you to be. You too, Brandy, right? Brandy, Helena, yes. And we want folks to be healthy and happy. That's the bottom line there. And thank you for doing that. I appreciate both of you, because you notice I didn't bring up the sex conversation, in part because it can be a very, very, there's a fine line between fetishizing transmasculine individuals and having open and honest conversations. Right. I appreciate the fact that you all are offering this safe and affirming space to have these type of conversations in a way that isn't fetishizing your community, which is part of our community.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Happy, healthy,
And by the way,
nasty
your wife
space.
is beautiful, and she just graduated from college. Shout out to
Thank you.
Mrs. Brandon.
Congratulations.
All right. So Elijah, rumor
Yes.
has it that you're single.
I am single. Yes, I am.
Are you now?
I am. I just said that on like national IG Live. I am single. There's a catch to my singleness, though. So I'm so glad we're having this conversation in such a safe space. So I'm single. I identify as pansexual and polyamorous. And I say that in the same conversation as being single because when I meet people, it is important that they don't put me in the heterosexual transgender box that people normally put us in, as Sebastian said. So what does pansexual polyamorous mean? For me, it means freedom, complete freedom. Some people say it means freak. I disagree. In some spaces, I might agree, but what I have found in my gender affirmation is a level of freedom sexually that I have never experienced before. And it's something that I still find that a lot of people are just not comfortable talking about. And honestly, it is one of the first things that I bring up when I meet new people who are interested in me because it's something that is who I am. And if you can't get with that, then I understand. It's just who I am, and I'm not willing to compromise my freedom, my polyamory freedom, my pansexual freedom for anybody, my transgender freedom. And so, yeah, I live a happy, fulfilled, wonderful life.
Thank you, wonderful life. So can you share very briefly what polyamorous is to you, what it means to you, and how other folks, perhaps some folks may have learned a new word. Some folks may just learn a new way of approaching it.
Absolutely. So what polyamorous I want to emphasize means to me is that I may have a relationship with multiple people, or I may be in a relationship with someone who has a relationship with multiple people. That doesn't necessarily mean sexual relationship, because I think that the misunderstanding about polyamorous relationships, which by the way, I think we all have some type of polyamorous relationship, but that's probably another conversation for another day. But what the misconception is that people who are polyamorous just have sex with all these people, like everybody they meet, they're having sex with. And maybe that's true for some people. That's not the case for me. I have meaningful, energetic, spiritual connections with multiple people. What pansexual means to me is that I'm attracted to people's energy and people's spirit. I don't consider a person's gender when I meet them. It's not like the first thing I'm like, oh, what's in your pants? Like for me, it's like, if we get to that conversation, great. If not, I want to know who you are intellectually. Like, turn me on with your mind. Like, let's have a conversation. And then if we get to the other things, then we can talk about, how we navigate that.
With all due respect, is it warm in here? Or just say it. I don't know.
I got some water over here, Tori.
If
But
there
does that
was
make sense?
so many people watching, I would have responded to that. But with that being said, all right. So Hepatitis Awareness Month is also coming up. I want to make sure that we get some good stuff, some real important conversations. I've never heard transmasculine or trans men or hell, even man mentioned in the same conversation with hepatitis. Mm-hmm. So Hepatitis Awareness Month, there are about 2.4 million people who are living with hepatitis C, and most of the folks don't even know it. I think that's also really interesting. Hepatitis C can cause liver cancer. Symptoms of hepatitis C may not show sometimes for as long as 20 years away. Hepatitis C can also be cured. One of the reasons why I mentioned hepatitis C is for many of us, many folks in the trans community, and then non-binary folks, and then other folks as well. For many of us, not all, every trans person does not choose to take some type of, help me, y'all. I'm still celebrating, and you don't know what's in this cup. That vaccine, medicine for their some type of medical intervention for their transition. But for those of us who do, many of us choose to take shots. Mm-hmm. And so there's times when perhaps you don't have the right needle, or you have a used needle and someone else may need a shot. Sharing needles is one of the ways that hepatitis can be spread. All right. So I wanted to make sure to bring that into the conversation because it is a health concern for some trans-masc folks. We also have to talk about breast cancer and other cancers, cervical cancer, as something that most men, cisgender men, never have to consider. But for trans-masculine folks, we need to bring that into the conversation, and why comprehensive health care is so important for all people, but especially for trans people. All right. So that was all my points. I had to make sure to get it in because, you know. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about leadership. All right. You both are leaders in the community. And notice I didn't say in the trans community. You're leaders in the Atlanta community. You're leaders in the national community. And you are also leaders in the trans-masculine community. So who poured into you, Elijah?
Wow, who poured into me? So many people have poured into me. I would start with my mother. My mother, and I realize I say this in the most humble way because I know that not every trans person has the familial relationships that I have, right? But my mother has poured into me tremendously from a kid. She's always shown me the importance and the experience of love and light and reciprocal relationships. As I matriculated through college, I would say I had different leaders along the way. I had multiple pastors who have poured into me. Most recently, my pastor, shout out to D.E. Smith, he has, Pastor Paul, I'm sorry, D.E. Paul has poured into me in a way that a pastor never poured into me before, from a leadership perspective and just from a space of love, right? And then I've had cisgender Black men who have poured into me from a mentoring perspective, which is why I started the mentoring program, because I didn't have Black transmasculine leadership to pour into me. And so now that I realize that people are calling me seasoned and I'm a little bit older than many trans folks coming along, it's my goal to pour back into some of the trans individuals that come along. And I don't just mentor only trans individuals. I mentor, a lot of people because, it was cisgender folks who have mentored me along the way.
Thank you. Thank you, Sebastian.
Very similar to what Elijah just shared. You, Tori, other community members,
Tori.
other folks that look like me. I want to say, and I say this a lot, that a lot of us, when we started doing this work, there wasn't, and it still isn't, right? There's no rule book. There's no guidebook, right, to show us what to do, what to say, how to say, And for me, when I first started doing this work, I didn't see many people that looked like me. I didn't see many Black trans men or Black transmasculine folks. So I realized that there was a gap there. And I had the avenue to use my voice. And I knew then, once I, identified, had the language for myself, I knew then not only that I had to advocate for me, I needed to advocate for other people that looked just like me and had many of the same lived experiences that I had. So that's what started my journey. And as I started going down that journey, I met other leaders. I met Carter with BTAC. I met, I met Sean Coleman, Alex with I Am Human, Derek with Ubuntu, like all of these amazing, Quentin Bell, like the names are just popping up of these amazing Black trans-masculine leaders who not only challenged me, but they also poured into me and we poured into each other. So that's a lot of the motivation, my community. Just my community, and not just Black, like Elijah said, not just trans men, not just trans people, even I have some amazing cisgender allies out there that will stand in front of me, behind me, support me and us at all costs, So I've had some amazing, not only community members, but some allies. My partner completely pours into me. And when other folks, don't see me breaking down in the hard times and the tough times, she's completely there for me. So many folks have poured into me. Absolutely.
Yes. I love that. And who are you pouring into right now?
Just like Elijah said, I want to pour back into folks, to my community, to other trans-masculine folks, because I'm sure, and I still get it today, I get messages in inboxes. There's no other trans men in my area. I don't know no other trans men to connect with still, and I'm going on over a decade into my own transition and a little bit more than that with this work, and I'm still hearing the same story. So it's a challenge for us, and it's our charge, right, Elijah, to go out and seek out those guys, go out and seek out those folks that are looking for leadership with amongst the community of people that look like them, right? So that's who I want to pour back into. And it doesn't, I think we clarified, like kind of when you're talking about age, I think we find out our youth are absolutely, like our youth, y'all, are absolutely amazing. Some of the folks that are coming behind us, I'm ready to sit down. I'm ready to sit down. I'm so proud. And just thinking about the possibilities, right? But then we also got to think about older folks, but are younger in their transition, right? That maybe didn't start their transition until 50 plus because they were waiting on family members to pass away before they, and all these things, right? Yeah. So we still have to think about those folks too, who are lived their life one way for so many years, and now have transitioned and are looking for direction and are looking for help and for folks to pour into them. So those are the communities of folks that I'm looking to pour back into.
I love that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that being said, so, because we're moving along. So I want us to talk very briefly about equity versus equality, or equality versus equity. And one way I like to frame for the folks who are listening, and anybody who knows me, I always think of it this way. So if we think of equality, so would you all play a little game with me to kind of model for what that could look like? So let's say, and I'm putting this into the universe in case you're listening. So let's say Chanel wants to do this new fabulous collab with Adidas, all right? And they're giving away to just the three of us a brand new Chanel X Adidas shoe, only 3 copies made, all right? How fab is that? Okay, so equality says, Elijah, what size shoe do you wear?
A 9.
What size shoe do you wear, Sebastian?
A 7.
Right. I don't wear a 9 and I don't wear a 7.
Okay.
None of your business. But let's say that Chanel and Adidas are going to give each of us a pair of 8s. That's equality. Mm-hmm. They give each of us the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Equity says, Elijah, you get your 9. Sebastian, you get your 7.5, and I get whatever size I wear. You notice it doesn't cost Chanel or Adidas anything extra to give all of us what we need.
I love that.
That is what equity is.
Right.
And so let's talk a little bit about what equity looks like versus equality in the real world. What it looks like for Black and brown people, but what it looks like for trans people and what it looks like for people in general.
On that point, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think we often conflate the two, right? We often hear equality and equity in the same kind of breath, and they also are overlapping. Don't get me wrong, because for you to be equal, then you have to make sure I have the shoe size that I need, and Elijah has the shoe size that he needs, right? So it's all connected, right? But equality says that if we're breaking this down to community, when we're talking about trans men, equity says that I too may need to go to the GYN office. But what that may mean for me versus a cisgender woman, I may need a private waiting room. I may need different I don't want to say utensils, that's an awful word. Different items used, during the examination. I may need, all of these other things that are different from what a cisgender woman needs, but I equally need access to GYN care, right? Yes. So we have to look at that and think about all of these nuanced areas where equity is bleeding into what we want to call equality. When we think about Roe versus Wade, we think about that as an attack on cisgender women. It absolutely is. But what it really is, too, is an attack on any person that has a uterus, a cervix, and it can birth babies. Any person that has that ability, if you're cis, whoever you are, Roe v. Wade will affect you, absolutely. And then for me, it also signified that they can come for our most basic healthcare rights. What else can they come for? What's next? That's and I'm knocking on wood, glass, everything, because that's my fear. Because if they can attack us this way, I'm not sure what else they can come for, right? So I think again, it's really clear. It's really important that folks understand the distinction between equality and equity and what it looks like, especially in our marginalized community. Because I need something different. I need different help sometimes than what my white counterpart may need.
That's good. And it's also important to remember, and we want to hear what you have to say about this too, Elijah. Equality only works if people have all of the same thing. If you started at the same place, if you run a race at the same speed, if you're the same height, you're the same weight, it means that all things are equal going into it. Otherwise, it only benefits the person who already has more.
Right.
It's just that simple. If we live in a society, and you could say it however you want to, my check already cleared. I got paid Friday. But we live in a society where folks who already have a lot, the three of us, we have a lot of privilege in society. Let's acknowledge that, all right? We have a lot of power and privilege in society based on rules that weren't set up for us. You both, certainly, you're trans, but you're men. And there is, in our society, we worship men in a way that we demonize women. And so you walk into a certain amount of privilege, all right? And so looking at trans rights, looking at the rights for non-binary people, looking at policy and legislation, we know that it's incredibly difficult to pass one rule for every single life circumstance that is equal for all people. All right.
It's impossible.
Yes, come on, Elijah, talk to us a little bit.
No, I was just going to say it's impossible, and that's why it's so important for us to make sure that we get to the polls. I know people don't like to talk about that. Like, it is not as simple as that, but in some cases it is as simple as going to the polls to vote for people who write these legislations, for people who write these policies. One population that we often don't talk about at all in our trans population and trans mass population specifically is our special needs population. They have very specific needs that Sebastian or we don't have those needs. And we have to make sure that we have people in office who are considering the needs for all of us. And that requires individual laws, individual policies. One of the problems or nuances is we find that many policies are wrapped up into some of these bills, right? And we don't take the time to dissect these bills and all of the things that we're voting on in this one bill or this one legislative act that's trying to go forward. And I think, that like we could unpack that, but when we talk about equality versus equity, I just think that that's a whole nother conversation that we need to continue having.
It's important. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
It is
You're
important.
welcome.
And we talk about pork barreling. That's a political statement. But in a nutshell, one of the ways that pork barreling exists is when, as you just said, there's a bill for, say, there could be a bill to create a bridge in some small county. And the legislators who are from that state, the senators, the Congress people who are from that state, they also want to add in things that are going to send more money to a major city. But then there are folks who are of the same party who also want to add some conditions in as well. And so what they're doing is they're adding to the bill so that it waters down often the intention of the bill and creates something out of nothing sometimes.
Absolutely.
Why is that important when having this conversation? Because trans rights get thrown into stuff that we have no business being in.
Absolutely.
All right?
No
There
business.
should not be, I will reiterate, we've all said this in different ways already, folks who have no respect over our own lives should not be creating policies that make it more difficult for us simply to live.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's just that simple. All right. So we're almost out of time, but in the last few minutes, I want us to talk about a couple of things. The Trans Justice Initiative, we are incredibly proud. At the Human Rights Campaign, the Trans Justice Initiative, our HBCU initiative, and our HIV and Health Equity Program, we are actually the recipients of the largest grant in HRC history from Gilead Sciences. Yay! All right. With that being said, you both just participated and graduated from our Motivate program, which is a new program. It was a Transmasculine Leadership Summit that was actually held in Atlanta 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Remember, it's my birthday and you don't know what's in the cup. So.
A week ago.
Like a week ago.
All right, it was sometime in May. All right, and it was absolutely fantastic. We're really, really proud because Motivate and also our first and only Spanish language leadership summit, which is going to take place in, I believe, in July or August this year, which is called LGBTQ. It's going to be absolutely bananas as well. And both of those, Motivate and LGBTQ, are both sponsored by VIVE. So tell us a little bit about your experience. Yes, cheers to VIVE and cheers to Gilead Sciences. So please tell us a little bit about your experience with Motivate and why should our goal is to make Motivate and LGBTQ part of our regular lineup of programs. We want to make sure that we're continuing to invest in trans-mass communities, to invest in folks for whom Spanish is their very first language, who also need to be leaders and happen to be trans and non-binary folks. Can you tell folks who are watching a little bit about your experience with Motivate and with the Human Rights Campaign?
Sure, absolutely. Doc, you want to go first?
Sure. First of all, Tori, I love how you say elevate. Say it again for me.
Elevate. I got that from Andrea Montanez, who was actually she's Colombian, and she actually pronounced it for me.
Well, I love how you say it. Thank you. It's just giving me life over here. Thank you for that because the Motivate program is absolutely amazing. It was a wonderful, about 24 hours that we spent together. And I can tell you that I personally have never, it may be different for Sebastian, but I've never been in a room with Black trans masculine leaders of that magnitude, period. Dot. I have not. And to be poured back into from yourself and your staff, it was just an amazing experience. And it's something that we need, that we have to address all of these things that we've talked about for the last 52 minutes, right? We can talk about it, but if we don't have a strategy to move forward, if we don't have the resources to move forward, if we don't have a plan to move forward, then we're just going to keep on talking about it. And Motivate gave me hope and belief in the future that we can collectively develop a strategy and move forward with folks like yourself. So thank you, Tori, for having us and pouring into us. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still enjoying and basking in the energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for putting your heart and soul into it, and we appreciate it. Sorry.
Absolutely. Just echoing that I said earlier that there is no rule book. There is no handbook. Maybe we're going to create one, but, as of right now, there is not one. So we know that there are many transmasculine leaders out here that are just looking to build their capacity, looking to learn more and wanting to do more. So HRC and the partners are thought about that, right? Like are centering us because we asked for it. Did we not ask for this? Did we not ask for folks to pour into us? And I think it's so important that we show up. And all of these guys and many more have showed up, are interested, definitely going to challenge HRC and the TGI program to keep this going because it's needed. I think we, in those 18 to 24 hours that we were together, some include, some intense instruction, so we can get those tools that we need in our tool belt. And then the other part of it was just getting to know each other socially, getting to be in a space that we felt safe enough to just be and just talk about our experiences in life and not just in the work. I think when we couple both of those two together, it makes for something that's just so amazing, right? It builds relationships. So now that we want to work with each other. These are, again, this was a room of leaders, of established leaders, folks doing the work, even youth, even amazing youth that are doing the work right now, right? And just being able for us all to connect, because even though all of our work is similar, right? Like it's overlapping, but we all have a role to play. We all have a spot. It's plenty of work for all of us out here to do. And we just want to make sure trans men have the access to the tools that they need to do the work. I don't want to, trust me, y'all, I'm okay with giving up a seat. I'm okay with giving up a seat. I've had, and I'm so thankful. Don't get me wrong. I am so thankful, so blessed, all of the things, the opportunities that are still coming my way. But I realize that I cannot do it by myself, and I cannot do it by myself and sustain my life forever in this way. So I am ready to pour out. I am ready to bring other folks on board and give my seat up to someone else who's wanting to do this work. And I think that's what it was about too, right, Tori? Like passing on those tools so other people can go out and use them and take seats and take up space, because we deserve it.
Yes. And thank you for that. Thank you. I felt that. And I also want to make it clear. So why is HRC presenting this type of platform for trans folks? And in the case of Motivate for transmasculine folks, and in the case of Elevate for folks for whom Spanish is their first language? Because we can. It's important to make sure. So HRC, for a number of years ago, HRC was founded in 1980. And along the way, there were folks who were left out. There were folks who weren't equitably engaged in the political action at HRC and in the movement in general. And so we thought it was really, really important. I started as a director, a national director at HRC in 2020. And coming in the door, I knew it was important to make sure that we're opening up the resources, the mind power that exists there, the political power that's there for folks just like the three of us, and like a whole bunch of folks who are tuning in today and who will see clips of this later, and who we're going to engage over the many, many years to come, folks who have not been included in conversations. And so it was important to make sure that we open the pocketbooks of our donors as well, because, you know, the truth is where you put your money is often where you put your mouth. Absolutely. You used to hearing it say, you know, put your money where your mouth is. Well, I just switched it out so I don't have to pay anybody copyright. All right, so we're about to log off very shortly, but in the last couple of minutes, I would like each of you to give folks one word of empowerment to take away from that, from this whole conversation, that they can take and run with. And I want everybody that's watching either live or watching later to know we've already decided we're going to do a part 2 of this conversation in about a month during Pride Month. We don't have the date confirmed yet, but we'll have that for you soon as well. So make sure to look out. Make sure to check your emails. If you're not a part of the HRC family, we encourage you to join. I can't ask for money because that ain't my job. But, well, I can't. Please give folks one word or something to take away.
Go ahead, Doc. I started us off.
Oh gosh, let me see. One thing to take away.
That was a chess move, Si. I love it.
Yeah, he's like, let me give me a chance to think. So I would say one of the most amazing people that I've ever heard say this is the amazing Tracy McDaniel, and she always says that trans rights are human rights, and human rights are trans rights, and trans, non-binary, IA plus community, or an ally. Human rights are the rights of all of us. And so what I would challenge you to ask yourself, what am I doing to support the rights, not just of myself, but of my brother, of my sister, of my sibling?
Sad. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And and again, here I go, kind of following that train. So thank you, Dr. Elijah, for that. It's just that we're human. We are human. We're human, y'all. We're human and deserve the access to just live happy and healthy lives, you know. So I don't necessarily have a word. I would speak to my people, you know, trans folks and non-binary folks out there to continue to fight, continue to know that we see you, we hear you, we're out here fighting for you. There are some amazing people that are on the front line as we speak right now that are fighting for you, and we will not stop fighting, right? So don't feel alone. I know it's scary, but we are winning. We're winning. We're winning. So remember that. Tap into yourself. Tap into your power. Stay empowered. Stay motivated. Stay calling your legislators. Bring their phone up. They work for us. You hear me?
Yes.
They work for us. So keep calling your legislators. Keep calling your lawmakers. Keep calling up to the national organizations that represent you and hold us to the task, and making sure that we are providing you with everything that you need, with all the access, all the education, all the stuff. So my word tonight is just continue to stay empowered, continue to know that you are enough. You have always been enough, and that we won't stop this fight.
I love it. Thank you. And this is how we know we're winning, guys. And everybody that's paying attention, we know that we're winning because they're fighting so hard. They're fighting so hard. They're creating policies for issues don't exist. I would like to leave you all, everybody that's paying attention today, just a couple of closing things as well. Come a little closer to the camera. I'm going to tell you all a little secret, all right? Trans people have always used the bathroom. There are some people who believe that trans people didn't use the bathroom. And I want to make sure that everybody here that is under the sound of my voice knows that if you know the genitals of the person in the stall next to you, then you're the one should be arrested, not the trans person who's in that stall. All right? Mind your business. Go in there, pee and poop, wash your hands, and leave.
Please wash your hands. That's wash your hands.
Yeah, you have to add that part in because some folks forget that. But it's so very, very important. You like that? Seek body autonomy. You like that one, didn't you? Florida, we're here with you. Certainly we send our thoughts and prayers, but also we're sending some political power there.
Yes.
Governor DeSatan is on a whole nother level, but he's going to get his too.
Absolutely.
All right. And last thing, I want to remind everybody that you are in a world where you can be seen and you are loved and you are valued. And no matter where you are today, you don't have to stay in that place. Yes. Thank you all for joining our Trans Talk Motivate Monday Instagram Live. Please support the Human Rights Campaign. As we close out, Elijah, tell folks how they can get in touch with you.
Dr. Elijah Nicholas on all social media platforms, on LinkedIn, Dr. Elijah Nicholas, and ElijahNicholas.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And he's single. Sebastian, tell folks how they can get in touch with you.
I am not single. I am married. So I don't even bring up why. Yeah, I'm married. She's on here. But you can reach me on Instagram. I am Mr._Hanson Gent. On Facebook, I am Sebastian Smith. Again, I am the organizing director at the National Center for Trans Equality. So you can find me over there. I am also doing I Am Human work too. So I'm around, mostly on a lot of social platforms. And I spell my name SYBASTIAN, and usually that'll find me. That Y jumps out, so usually that'll find me.
I appreciate it. Nick can both go on our website and find out more information about you too as well. I encourage you to book these folks, have them to come, have them to speak for you. We're going to continue the conversation, and do not go in by. The one right here said he was single. The one right here is not. His wife is beautiful, she's smart, and she fights. Don't send him no stupid stuff, all right? Have an amazing day. We love you, and thank you so much for joining us today. Share, 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 fight, fight, fight. And thank you all for your support of the Human Rights Campaign.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tori.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you, gents.
All right. Bye-bye.